Welcome. I imagine most of us have seen or heard some adorable older couple who's been married for 40 or 50 years, and when someone asks them to share their secret, they simply look at each other with a loving gaze and say, we just never go to bed angry. Now, if that's you, if you're someone who's able to never go to bed angry, hats off. That is amazing. But for many of us, it can be dangerous to feel like we need to work all of our problems out at night. It's just not practical. And today I want to talk about why sometimes we need to do the exact opposite. We actually need to go to bed when we're angry because that is what allows us to regulate ourselves and prevent some really toxic situations. So I want to talk about what the brain science is behind this and what some things are that you can do instead that might help to save your relationships. Let's get started. I think the first thing that we need to address when it comes to why we need to sleep is the brain science. Our brain does not function the same at all times of the day because it gets tired. So some of the processes that we're able to do efficiently and effectively earlier on in the day, by the time it's afternoon and evening, we just don't have those same abilities. The prefrontal cortex, which we rely on for our executive functioning, for some of our critical thinking tasks, our analytical tasks, that part of the brain gets tired. Meanwhile, the amygdala, which is our survival brain, and it has all of the emotional neurotransmitters, that tends to get overactive late at night. So do you ever notice how some of the really bad things happen at night? More car accidents, more relapses, more people texting that ex that they said they weren't going to text. That's just because our judgment starts to get obscured when our brain is tired. If we can appreciate that, then we really can plan accordingly and make sure that we're not trying to engage in difficult conversations when our brain is least equipped to be able to think through them and to be able to talk about something in a calm, rational, and constructive manner. The next thing to talk about is sleep itself. Sleep can get a bad rap. Some people will talk about a person who is sleeping as someone who might be lazy or avoidant, trying to take the easy way out. And in fact, if there is a conversation you're having with someone, you realize, I'm too tired to talk about this, I need to go to sleep. That might even kick up some fears that the other person has, that you're trying to avoid the conversation or you're trying to stonewall. But here's the thing to remember. Sleep is actually a way to regulate yourself. See, when we are too tired to talk about something that is serious and heavy and that commands a lot of brain power and a lot of emotional regulation, we just can't expect our brains to do that. It's just unrealistic. So allowing yourself to go to sleep does some important things for your brain. It allows your brain to rest. It replenishes your brain. It allows the different functions of the brain to get reset so that when you wake up the next morning, things actually look different. You have new perspective, new clarity, and maybe even more patience. So honoring the biology of the brain is a really important way to make sure that you're addressing issues in relationships at the appropriate times. Now, if I haven't sold you on the benefits of going to bed angry, I want you to now consider, what are the risks of not taking this advice? What if you do just try to push through and instead have these tough conversations later in the day or in the evening? Well, what can happen? Maybe you've experienced it. Sometimes our emotions escalate. Sometimes tempers flare. We get triggered. We start to say things that we don't mean. And in some cases, this even leads to communication that's really toxic, dysfunctional, even violent. So none of this is worth it, right? If you care about the people in your life, you just don't want to take a risk of having to have conversations that might go south, where there is going to be damage that happens. And then that next day, you have to deal with a new problem, which is repairing the damage that happened in that conversation that you had. And, we can't take things back. Sometimes we can apologize, but the things that we say might stay with that other person for a long time. So that's another reason to really make the case for rescheduling a conversation. Assure that person, whoever it is, this is an important topic. We do need to talk about it, but I want us to talk about it in a constructive way. I want us to have a resolution. And I don't believe I'm capable of doing that at this hour of the day. So we need to do this at another time. Let's talk about when we can come back together and have this conversation. All right. I hope these ideas were helpful for you. If there's someone you know that might benefit from hearing this, feel free to share it with them. And thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.